Good morning, football fans. This is Sully. You know me for co-hosting Pigskin Prognosis. I'm here with my co-host Zach. Zach, say hello.
Hello.
And this is our what we'll call the season finale, since we'll still have a couple episodes here and there, but we'll treat it like the NFL and new new league year type shit. We'll do here too. This is our Super Bowl recap. We didn't put an episode out last week because it was Pro Bowl, and honestly, no one really cares about the Pro Bowl, but I feel like we got a pretty good episode of some recapping the Super Bowl, talking about who won. If you don't know by now, it's been by the time this actually goes up, 2 days after the fact. One of our previous guests will probably be happy with the winner. We'll just put that out there until we get into it. But everybody stick around, and hopefully you guys are going to be in for a good episode. I say hopefully because Zach's bound to say something stupid. So we'll get into it. All right. So Super Bowl, right? Yesterday. Initial impressions of the games. 2 days ago now.
Yeah.
Day of is the recording. But what were your initial impressions of the game overall there, Zach?
I was extremely happy at the very start of the game to see KC just get whooped on. Not scoring in the first half at all was bringing a joyful smile to my face.
Very, very happy.
I will say, I'm very sad. I know that you were heartbroken to have your best, your idol booed by the fans at the stadium.
John Cena was at the game.
No.
Even if he was, nobody would be able to see him.
Taylor Swift looked visibly upset that she got booed, and yeah, she.
Well, did you see her mouth? Like what she mouthed after that when they panned to her and she got booed? You can see her mouth go. What is going on?
Yeah. Well, it's.
So I don't know if she was just confused that she was getting booed, or she just genuinely didn't see like what the hell was happening.
We know they weren't booing Trump, so. But yeah, okay. So first, initial reaction was I thought it was going to be a lot closer of a game, based off of the first two drives, just some solid defense. Got pissed off because of the pass interference call or whatever, but that made no difference.
No, then they ended up giving another like bullshit penalty for the Eagles, which ended up kind of counteracting it, but yeah, it still was kind of heavy. And then there was one penalty where it was offsides on the Chiefs. Eagles were getting ready to kick, and yet the Eagles were the ones that got the penalty and moved back 5 yards because they called it a false start on the snapper.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of fucking ridiculous. But overall, I would say as far as the penalties go, I was shocked that they kind of let him play.
Yeah.
Minus that one pass interference.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the old fashioned football that you need to keep that mentality with, except for the one PI that they called on Philly in the first drive where they called him for OPI where he just put his hands in his face. Like, I mean, even that, it's like that's on the line. Like that can go either way because that one touch is not really going to mess up the defender that much. And to be completely honest, like you gotta fight through that regardless. So let them battle. Let the better receiver or defensive guy come out with the ball and just have some good hard playing football. That's what I like to see, and hopefully they move forward with that mentality over the next season. So we'll see.
Hopefully, I know they were talking about going through and kind of adjusting the whole not offensive pass interference, but roughing the quarterback, like that penalty. I think is going to be actually allowed to get looked at under review due to mostly Mahomes, running it and kind of faking sliding, and then end up getting an extra couple yards out of it, compared to when a defender just fucking hits him and then he ends up drawing a penalty for it. But
I think everything should be able to be reviewed and challenged.
100%.
I mean, there's no reason why a coach can't say, "I want to look at that," because like what's stopping them? If you have a challenge flag to use and you have a timeout to burn, you should be able to use your challenge flag on anything. Was that play offsides? Was the quarterback baiting into a tackle for a slider or whatever the case may be? Like, I think that everything should be looked at in review.
Oh yeah, agreed. Uh,
So what did you think of it when you started watching it and you started when the game first started? Score aside, what did you think?
yeah, so game, kickoff, I felt like the Eagles came out quick, right? I know they came out running a couple run plays, trying to get Barkley going in the beginning, which obviously isn't quick. But then you have that play too. I believe it was AJ Brown that was the one that ended up getting penalized and called back. Um, they were looking for the long shots downfield, thinking everything was going to open up the run game, and I mean it kind of did, but kind of didn't too, depending on how you look at it. For a running back perspective, it didn't really open up much. But for the Russian QB that Jalen Hurts is, it did open up that ability, which was nice since he ran for 72 yards, which is almost 20 yards more than Barkley did. Um, I feel like the Eagles defense, as much as it pains me to say this, and I know Kev, hopefully he'll listen to it and is just cursing me up a storm because I know he's going to disagree, but it pains me. Or he's not going to disagree, but he's going to agree. But it just pains me that I have to say this, that statistically the Eagles defense is the best defense in the NFL, has been since like week fucking 6, I think, after the bye week. And it pains me to see that they actually showed up and were able to keep that going.
Yeah.
I was like, we talked, like you said too. I figured it was going to be a close game. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought Spags' defense was actually going to be able to, they stopped Barkley. You didn't really stop Jalen. He threw for 221 yards and 2 TDs, and he ran for 72 and a touchdown. So, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, you slowed down one aspect of it, one element of it, but when you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Barkley and Hurt, it's hard to stop everyone. But I think overall it was a good. I use the term good loosely, but it was a good game just for the fact of that the Eagles ended up pulling out the win and the Chiefs didn't three-peat. So
Yeah, that's. I mean, I honestly just would have rooted for anybody against the Chiefs. Like I do not like the Chiefs. I would have
exactly.
I would have pulled for the Steelers, and I'm a Browns fan because I don't like the Chiefs. So I think it was cool to see Jalen Hurts go off. I think he did. I think he had a really, really good game. I was sad that Saquon Barkley didn't go off because I put a lot of money on him. So we'll skip over that. What else, man? Like the stat line, though. It was one of those games where if you didn't watch it and you just looked up the stats afterwards, you're like, oh, Pat Mahomes threw for 258 yards or whatever. And he lost, what, 22-40? Like, oh, that's not a bad game. But then you look back and you're like, oh, they didn't start scoring until Philadelphia pulled all their starters out.
Yeah, and
You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that fucking
quarter.
makes sense. Yeah. Like, all right, it makes sense now. Like, Pat Mahomes had like 24 passing yards in the first quarter, the first like quarter and a half, like the first 25 minutes.
There was more points scored for the Eagles than there was total yards for the Chiefs going into halftime.
Yeah, and kind of embarrassing for a team in the Super Bowl, especially.
I don't know. I also think too this showed too that everyone was sitting there saying all season the Kansas City Chiefs shouldn't have been the number 1 seed, right? How many games did they have of 1-score games?
That it was 7 or something or 12.
Yeah, that they kind of lucked out and ended up pulling out the win either by a missed field goal or a late penalty or whatever the fuck the case may be, right?
Yeah.
And this just shows too that hey, they're not the dominating force that they thought they were. I mean, Mahomes was sacked what 7 times, 5 times, 7 times, something like that.
Yeah, it was 5+ times. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Eagles, from the stat that I saw going after halftime when Mahomes got sacked back to back, the Eagles didn't blitz a single time up until that point. So you're getting pressure like that with just a 4-man rush.
Yeah,
and you're able to get it to them.
Right, and that was exactly what I was about to say. Your offensive line is just that solid, or your defensive line is just that solid. 4 on 5, and you're still getting through. One of your guys, I think it was it Sweat?
Yeah, had a game.
Was like constantly double teamed, and he was still getting through.
Yeah,
like if you're drawing that much attention, your offensive line needs to change their priorities.
And that's the thing too. I think everyone expected Mahomes to run more too, but it's hard to run if you don't have the opportunity to find a running lane or to look down the field and scan, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And because by the time he snaps the ball, the defender was pretty much already there. There was one hit, he got hit hard. It was the fumble that he lost.
Yeah. He got
And
smacked right in the face.
yeah, he got smacked in the mouth, and I was like, well, here's the downfall. Not downfall, but I was like, there was no way. I didn't think he was getting up from it. He looked like he got hit a hell of a lot harder than he
Dude, to
did.
be honest, I thought they broke his fucking leg the way he like folded backwards. I was like, he's done. He's out. But it actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah, they replayed it. There was some face mask in there, hands to the face type stuff that wasn't called. Okay, yeah. I mean, if you want to call penalties and stuff not getting called, all right, cool. This is the one that the Eagles got away with. You know what I mean? But
yeah, but even then, like, it's just one of those things. Like, your hand touched him in the face, but you're going for a tackle, you're going for a play, you're going for a block. Like, I feel like that should be a little bit different. Yeah, you're not like going straight for the head. Like, you're fighting off an offensive lineman, you're jumping up in the air. Like, it's incidental contact, I'll call it. You know, I think that's something that you can like get away with.
Yeah, but I mean, how many times have we seen that kind of shit called in the NFL, though?
It's a valid point. I'm just kind of like more of a personal opinion. Like, I think that that's something that that happened in the game that should be just kind of let go because it's a rough one of those rougher plays that just happens to happens to happen. You know?
Yeah, no, I gotcha.
So,
and I mean, you sit there and obviously that happens, and it was clearly affecting him. You know, that pass rush was good. And I can't even say rush because they weren't blitzing, but you get what I'm saying. That pass rush was impressive by the Eagles. Their O-line for the Chiefs, god awful.
And even if they weren't creating pressure by the defense, they were pushing their offensive line back into Mahomes. That's what happened on that pick, on one of his picks. Like, his offensive lineman just backed into him because he couldn't hold his ground.
Yeah, and then you look at it too, and you compare stuff to like Joe Burrow, for example, right? And how abysmal his offensive line has been, and how everyone's been very openly critiquing that team, and yet Burrow led the league in passing yards, led the league in passing touchdowns, and I believe he led the league in completions too, if I'm not mistaken.
It was either completions or completion percentage, but it was another stat like that. Yeah, you're right.
And granted, I mean, you still into Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? So a little different. I mean, granted, Mahomes has Worthy, which
I was about to say,
doesn't prove that he, the kid can play, right? As a rookie, especially. But everyone sits there and looks at it and tries to compare, Mahomes and Burrow, blah blah blah. But yet, Mahomes pretty much faced the same thing and wasn't able to perform. How many games last year did Burrow throw for 350 plus yards and multiple, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns in a game, where his offense line looked like Swiss cheese?
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice as you see kind of like that, taste of their own medicine. And what I'm more intrigued by is Travis Kelce, right? So I don't know if you saw, but he got a lot of flack for going on a date with Taylor Swift like Friday night, I think it was, Saturday morning or some shit.
Okay. So what?
Yeah. Everyone's making a big deal about it because of the fact that, like, shouldn't you be prepping for the game? Blah blah blah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the man goes out and had how many drops?
That I wrote in the script. Y'all are gonna fucking laugh at this. I said Travis Kelce couldn't catch a cold if a homeless man coughed in his mouth.
Absolutely. I think he had.
New Orleans has some cringy fucking homeless people. So let me just say that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not on board with the hate of like shit on him because he went on a date, but his performance was not there, for sure.
No, I'll say, so we'll go over just the top 4 receivers for Kansas City, right? So you had Xavier Worthy, 8 out of 8, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Oh, he caught everything.
Next,
damn. Okay.
Yeah, and say everything. Travis Kelce, 4 for 6, 39 yards, but he didn't have a single catch going into halftime, which is the first time that's happened in his postseason career.
Yeah, I think he had both. He had 2 drops. Both of his drops were in the first half.
The second one, though, I will say wasn't his fault because it was kind of low and behind him. It was a bad pass from Mahomes because he got rushed. I do remember that one vividly.
Okay.
And then DeAndre Hopkins, 2 for 5, 18 yards and a touchdown. And then Juju Smith-Schuster was 2 for 2 with 16 yards, no touchdowns. So that's your top 4 right there in receiving yards and catches and such. I expected Worthy to be a big contributing factor, and one of those was that deep pass in basically garbage time of that game anyway.
Yeah, that 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah, and I don't
Which,
know.
by the
You took
way, that helped me win a bet because he needed 250 yards. And when he was sitting at 24 going into half, I was getting real fucking nervous. But that 50-yard touchdown put me 8 over, and I made out on that one. So maybe my shitty bets of the week are actually starting to come up on the rise. We'll see how we do in 2025. Anyway, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're good. We didn't do Zach shitty bets of the week because we didn't film an episode last week because it was Pro Bowl. But I don't know. Travis Kelce didn't. I mean, maybe it's just me, but he didn't look like the Travis Kelce we've seen. I know we've talked about this before about how he hasn't looked the same. He hasn't been producing the same numbers. There's been games where he does, games where he doesn't. But I feel like in the biggest stage that you had the opportunity, that you've been there before. Like, this isn't your first Super Bowl, right? So like the whole like jitters and nervousness, yeah, they're there, but you've been there before.
Right.
So like I don't understand. You basically averaged a little less than 10 receptions a carry or a catch, 10 yards a catch. Do you think what do you think caused all that? What do you think? I mean, granted, obviously we're not Kelce, we don't know him, we don't have him on speed dial or anything. As cool as it would be to get his opinion on this, but
he's a Cleveland boy. Maybe we can work that angle on him. Maybe let me work my Cleveland magic.
That's true. Let's work on getting a DraftKings sponsorship first, and then
I don't know. I can't even compare to put myself in those shoes, but if I had to take a stab at his lack of performance in the Super Bowl, I would have to say it was probably lack of confidence because of his lack of performance throughout this regular season. So maybe he was more so focused on trying to make up for how little he did this season, because I'm sure he hears all the critics in the game that matters. And it's unfortunate because you could see that it was clearly weighing on him going into half. You could see it on his face. You could see he's talking to himself. He's pissed off, which I love that. Like, take that drive and fix it. And he did. He had some catches, but it just, you can't just, single one thing out and say like, hey, do this better when the rest of your team, minus Xavier Worthy, was also not there, right? Yeah. Mahomes didn't have a good game. He was throwing bad passes. The offensive line was letting pressure get to Mahomes to rush those passes. Had Mahomes had a solid O-line for the game, had some time to think in the pocket, had some time for Kelce, who's not the quickest route runner in the league, to break out and maybe find a hole in the defense, which we saw that was clearly in the secondary, and deep balls were having, the safeties were having trouble making those plays. That's where those passes need to be made, but you can't, if you don't have enough time to let Kelce get down the field, you're not going to find him at all. So I don't want to say that it's all his fault for not making the plays, but it's just, it's like that domino effect, if you will. Offensive line, let's pressure get to Mahomes too quick. Mahomes is forced to make a dire throw and a decision to make a gutsy call. Led to 2 picks. One was a pick 6. And possession was a big thing for Kansas City. They're very rhythmic with their plays. Mahomes likes to catch defenses off guard. He likes to pick apart the defensive line, the secondaries, the middle linebackers, the safeties. He loves identifying matchups that they're a benefit for KC, and that just wasn't there because one, his time of possession was cut on the 2 interceptions where he had the ball. Was it the first interception was like the second play of the drive, and the second interception was the first play of the drive? Yeah, so I mean, you're sitting down for all that time and you're trying to get yourself psyched up. You go out and you throw 2 passes and you go sit back down again. And then you go back out, a couple minutes later or whenever the second one was, and you're out there for 1 play. And it's just no way for you to get in a rhythm that you're used to when the defense is picking you apart and you're supposed to be doing the opposite. So that's kind of where I think the Kelce malfunction, I'll call it, came apart, or was identified, was that it was just kind of that domino effect. He wasn't in a spot to be an aggressive target. I'll call him. He was a good. He is a consistent catcher. He made 4 out of 6, but I mean the first half nobody was working for Casey. Not even Worthy. Worthy had like 4 yards in the first half, and he ended up with 157. So there was nothing flowing for Casey. So to say Kelsey had a bad first half is kind of unfair when you put it in when you single it in. You got to kind of zoom out and look at the perspective of the whole team. I mean,
Not the team as a whole. It's a team sport.
Exactly. And I mean, Mahomes had 20 some yards the entire first half. So, yeah.
So since we're on the topic of Kelsey, there's a lot of speculation talking about, if they won this game, he'd hang it up. As a football fan, and obviously we know that neither of us are too fun. Well, I'm not. You're a big Kansas City fan. What do you see? What would you like to see from Travis Kelsey next? Would you like to see him play another year, or would you like to see him hang it up?
Yeah, my fantasy football team needs a tight end. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him show Noah Gray the ropes, so that way I can pick up Noah Gray midseason sometime next year, and then rely on him for the rest of my fantasy years, for the next 6 to 8 years. No, I seriously, I think Kelsey's got football left in him, and I think he thinks that too. But he's getting close.
I'd say he's 34, 30, almost 35, I think. Is sometime this year he'll be 35. I mean, and when he's sitting on his brother's podcast and they're talking about it, and his brothers asked him too, hey, like, when do you think it's it? And he's, from the sounds of it, sounds like it's pretty damn soon. So I figured it, obviously what better way to go out than winning a Super Bowl, right? But I feel like he's going to end up coming back just to prove that point of like, this season was a fluke. We've got it in us to win, another Super Bowl, and then I'll ride off into the sunset type deal.
Yeah, if anything, because like you said, it's a team sport. There's a lot of factors that you cannot control when it comes to a Super Bowl win. If he's coming back for another season, if anything, it's going to be more so for a personal vendetta against himself to say, last year sucked. I sucked. I can do much better, and I can prove it to myself. I'm not doing it for the fans. I'm not doing it for the fantasy points. I'm doing it to say my last year in the league was not shit. And if he does another, year or two with Pat Mahomes, who's more than likely going to stay in KC, who's probably going to live and die there his whole career, then at this point, they're just setting records. They're not breaking records. They're setting the records for QB and receiver touchdowns, QB and receiver completions, yards. Like, they are the matchup to beat, and they are still playing. So why not, if anything, set a legacy to try to be beaten later, And I think that would be a mentality that he kind of has to focus on if he plays next year or another 2 years.
So you're kind of saying, kind of compare it to Brady and Gronk type deal.
Yeah, exactly. But I just don't see them leaving Kansas City. As much as Cleveland fans would love to see him come to play in Cleveland for 1 year, he's not going to happen. He's going to stay with KC.
Yeah, I'd say Mahomes signed that 10-year contract like 4 or 5 years ago now at this point. I think might have been a little more recently than that. But so yeah, he'll end up, I think, playing if not his whole career, if not moving on at like the end. But I think he'll end up retiring out of there.
For sure. I agree with you.
But so now I know that you're going to be picking up Noah Gray in our fantasy league, so I can write that down. late pickup for Zach. Got it. Might as well I'll just take your donation now that you're going to be given to the league. But
okay.
Agreed. I have that feeling Kelsey's going to come out one more year and like you said, prove that last year was a fluke, like like we just mentioned. But all right, on the flip side of that, right, the Eagles side, me, you, and Kev talked 2 weeks ago about how their Super Bowl win was going to basically go through Saquon Barkley. How we could not have been more wrong.
Well, Saquon got them there. I will say it was on the back of Saquon, but the victory itself relied a lot on Jalen Hurts. And you're right.
Yes.
I think that the victory itself, we were expecting it to be Saquon, but I mean, you can only do so much. And I think Kansas City focused too much on trying to contain Saquon that they forgot how good Jalen Hurts was. So, I mean, when Jalen Hurts ran, and he ran for more yards than Saquon, it was like the Red Sea, meaning Kansas City's defensive line, parted up the middle, and he could take off, and there was no defender within 20 yards. And that happened multiple times throughout the game. So it's almost as if Steve Spagnuolo completely forgot that Jalen Hurts could do that because they were so focused on containing Saquon, which they did, but they forgot about their other key factor.
Yeah, that's the thing too. If you look at Barkley's stat line, right, 25 carries, 57 yards, so you average 2.28 yards, right, for a dude that was less than 100 yards away from breaking the regular season rushing record.
Yeah.
You look at just that, you think, damn, Kansas City probably won the game, if not, kept it really, really close, right? And obviously, you look at the score, 22-40, 22-40. You could kind of call that close, but if you look at halftime score, it wasn't the case. And obviously, those last 2 touchdowns and the 2-point conversions, and basically what was garbage time when you have the backups in for everything,
right?
Doesn't show that, doesn't reflect that. So yeah, like I agree. It is almost like the defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo kind of forgot exactly what Hurts was able to do. Like you said, like everyone thinks like, oh, like he's only good for the the brotherly shove or the tush push or whatever you guys want to call it, right? And obviously he disproved that. The man ran 11 times for 72 yards. The touchdown was on the tush push, and he still threw for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and only missed 5 passes.
That's the other factor too, right? I don't want to just take his credit of saying, oh, he can rush. He was a dual threat, a legit dual threat. Like, quarterbacks can run, okay? When you rush 4 and your middle linebacker plays a deep drop zone coverage, your quarterback's got 5-7 yards of room to run up the middle. But in Jalen Hurts' case, he wasn't just running and going for a first down. He was running and he was not stopping. He was juking players. He turned into a running back. So to see him do that and turn into that dual threat of throwing deep passes, and I mean hitting the money on those throws. He was putting the ball where only their receiver could catch it.
And it was impressive to watch that. Yeah, there was deep one, which I think was I think it was Devontae Smith that caught it.
Devontae Smith, that long touchdown?
Yeah. Like right before the Chiefs had theirs.
Yeah.
Was that ball could not have been placed more perfect.
It fell
that
right
was probably
in his
one
lap.
of the the crispiest throws I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In the NFL ever. And I feel like a lot of people, as much as I don't like to sit there and praise the Eagles because obviously they're not my favorite team, but a lot of people seem to forget that Jalen Hurts is in fact capable of doing that, making those throws, especially when it counted. And damn, did he make that game count?
Yeah.
Ended up winning the Super Bowl MVP, which honestly, had you asked me Sunday morning or hell anytime last week, I would have said Barkley was going to win Super Bowl MVP.
Me too. I put money on it. So
I absolutely thought he was going to be the one taking it. And there's only been 3 people to beat Mahomes now in the playoff era: Joe Burrow, Tom Brady twice, and now Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
So Jalen Hurts adds himself to what I would consider, pretty damn good company to be, one of 3 people to beat what everyone seems to, deem as this dynasty, comparable to the Patriots back in the early 2000s. But hopefully that time run has already ran its course, and I have sneaking suspicion. I'll be interested to see. So we'll kind of shift it a little bit now to a little bit of next season draft talk stuff, since it's kind of going that way anyway. So Kellen Moore, Eagles offensive coordinator, looking like he's going to go be the Saints either head coach or I'm assuming it's their head coach because I don't think they've hired anybody yet.
No.
So I'll be interested in seeing exactly how that plays out for their offense now.
For the Eagles?
Correct. Yeah, you still have Barkley. Yeah, you still have Devontae Smith. And yeah, you still have A.J. Brown and obviously Jalen Hurts.
Well, you got to think too. I mean, yeah, the offensive coordinator makes a lot of those calls, but Nick Sirianni had a big hand in that offense, pulling that offense together, making those plays, letting those guys kind of become who they are or play the way that they should play, kind of letting them loose, if you will. So I'd be interested to see how um, whoever takes over as the new offensive coordinator kind of learns from Nick Sirianni.
True. I think next season will be interesting for a lot of teams, the Eagles being one of them too. KC obviously coming out from what I'm going to go ahead and call a blowout loss in the Super Bowl. I know they scored 22 points, but
Yeah.
16 of those were complete bullshit against second stringers, basically. So going to the draft, right? Obviously, the rest of it's locked in, right? KC's got the 31st pick and Philly's got 33rd, right? With that, obviously based on what we saw last night or 2 nights ago in this now, what would you think draft-wise KC needs to pick up?
Offensive line.
Literally anything offensive line. I was gonna say the exact same fucking thing. Literally anything offensive line.
Either tackle or guard, but I would say tackle. But honestly, now I will say, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, they're a dime a dozen because there's so many. People get hurt all the time. You always have a bunch of backups. So drafting one first round, maybe not. Maybe if it were me, I would look at something defensive wise because their entire defensive line, except Chris Jones, is also leaving. So, I made it sound like their entire offensive line is leaving. That's not the case. Only 2 of them are. They're left tackle and right guard. But Chris Jones is the only person on the defensive side to stay on that line in 2025 under contract, unless they re-sign somebody. But that's something that I think should be a bigger focus, is finding someone to complement Chris Jones' play style.
Myles Garrett?
Don't you do that to me.
Hey, man, I mean, we can talk about them here in a minute, too, but...
that could happen.
They don't have much fucking cap space right now to play with his contract, and it doesn't sound like he wants to stay there if they're going to keep losing.
Hear me out. Here we go. KC picks up Myles Garrett for a first-round draft pick.
Okay.
Then we draft Shadur Sanders, second overall.
Okay.
You with me?
I'm following.
Okay. And then we pick up some kind of wide receiver with our 31st pick of the draft, or some kind of offensive threat. And then we just get rid of fucking what's his nuts? Fucking Deshaun.
Well, I mean, he might not even play because he records Achilles. So
that would be ideal, but
all right. So per Tankathon, which we've tagged and we'll go ahead and post it again too. It's got you guys picking a edge rusher at number 2. Sanders going 3. Obviously, Cam Ward from Miami, they got currently predicted going 1. I think I don't know why, but I can see Tennessee trading away that first pick. Because they got Levis already too, 2 almost 3 years ago.
Trade away Levis. What if you traded away Levis?
Who's going to take him?
I mean, Cleveland.
I mean, I guess, but at that point, why? If you're already planning on potentially drafting your what you're hoping to be your franchise QB at that point at number 2, right? So why pick that?
What if we did this? Let's hear this out. Cleveland, pay attention. Number 2 overall, we draft Travis Hunter. Okay.
Okay.
And then we give Myles Garrett. We trade him to KC.
Okay.
And we take their first round pick, and we pick up Quinn Ewers. Just saying, old Texas boy.
I mean,
he's not projected to go until like the 3rd or 4th round. I mean, Jalen Miller isn't projected to go until the 4th round.
So looking at ESPN's mock draft, they have you guys picking Shadur at number 2. Travis Hunter going to 3 to the Giants. And then let me see.
I mean,
What?
Shadur's not going to go until.
Yeah, they have a guard for Kansas City. The first wideout coming off the board. Hold on, I'm gonna go back up.
Well, according to Tankathon's mock draft, Quinn Ewers is actually projected to get drafted by the Browns 94th overall. So I take back what I said.
All right. So first wideout is number 9. This is per ESPN, not Tankathon. Is for the Saints. The dude from Arizona is the first wideout. And then
Totoroa McMillan.
yeah, and then your next one isn't until. Shit, I gotta scroll a little bit. Hold on. 21 by Denver, the dude from Missouri.
Okay. 21
Which
21 is the Steelers though.
21's Broncos.
20 is Broncos.
20 is Texans.
25 is. I'm looking at something different than this is what Tankathon.
Yeah, what do you? I'm looking at ESPN's mock draft.
Okay. Well,
because Tankathon's got 21 at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Texans at 25.
Yeah, I think I'm going to trust ESPN a little bit more on that one. At least for the draft order.
That's valid.
And then the next one will be Washington at 26 for a receiver. And then that rounds out everybody. So three big name, I use that term very loosely, big name tight ends to get you, or receivers, sorry, I saw tight end on one of them, at receiver to pick up potentially with if you did pull that trade off, right?
Yeah.
But I gotta see Shadur going to. I mean, I want to say he's going to be the number 1 overall, but I mean, maybe it's just my thought because the Cam Ward held out of the, pulled himself out with that last little bit in that bowl game, and maybe I just have a little bit of a grudge against that because it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You keep bringing that up. You do. Did that hurt
know.
you? Did you lose money on that game or something? Or
no, I don't know. It bugs the shit out of me, and I don't know why. I mean, I know why. I've explained it. I've explained it before, but. And I mean, we can also just take the fact of the Giants could go through and just do something completely dumb and trade and go up 2 spots thinking that they're not going to be able to get a QB because obviously they need one.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they might make some kind of drastic game day decision to trade up to 2 just to make sure Cleveland doesn't get them.
True. And then,
because Cleveland needs them, so.
I mean, does that really do anything? I mean.
No, it doesn't. But it's that card to say I can. What do you have to give me to make sure I don't take this guy from you?
And then, I feel like the Giants. I mean, I don't know. I obviously haven't looked much into it. I haven't really prepped much for draft talk, but I don't feel like the Giants have a lot to be able to work with. I think they're hoping to be able to draft somewhere else so that they can keep people on the cheaper side. Since they signed. Obviously, Daniel Jones ended up being a bust. They signed him for a massive contract. Don't even have to do it on the table. So that's a giant cap hit, right?
Yeah.
So I don't. Well, next episode we'll dive a little bit deeper into this.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we can dive into all that stuff. But so, all right, we hit on the Chiefs draft. Eagles, right? What are you seeing and or thinking that they should be doing based on what we saw?
I think it's kind of the same thing. I think they're either offensive line or defensive line. They are losing Zach Bond, who was a major player in their season. Hopefully they re-sign him. I think he's a great player, and I think he's going to do really good wherever he goes. Maybe he comes to Cleveland. I don't know, just saying. But
not everyone can go to Cleveland.
Damn it! Why not?
Not everyone.
Overall, though, I think it's going to be. I think they're going to look more so on the defensive side of things. Some kind of edge rusher, maybe, or just maybe like a regular good old tackle to replace. Is it Sweat who's going to free agency this year?
I think they re-sign him.
You think? I mean, he did lead the team. He did lead the team in sacks. So
I think so. I think that Super Bowl performance kind of locked in the hey, write your own check type deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that pretty much rounds out. I know we hit the top 5, and then we hit pretty much the last like playoff contenders for draft stuff, and we'll me and you'll talk about at the end, more toward like what we're thinking for episodes going forward, since there are no more football games until August timeframe. But we still do have the draft, and obviously we can post.
I
We're looking at
mean,
making.
I don't want to say there's no football until August. They do have the UFL starting in March, so that's always something. We can just make bullshit content out of that. We'll figure it
out. But yeah, we'll talk about it at the end of the episode what we were talking about before we started recording about what the podcast will look like hopefully moving forward for at least until we pick back up in the the preseason / regular season at the end of this episode. But the other big thing, I know we have it on the script here. I couldn't think of the word script. Is news broke. Actually, I have another thing too on here too that we'll touch on after this convo. But the Jets have officially informed Aaron Rodgers that they're going to be moving on from him in 2025. I know we've kind of talked about him before, but what do you think is A, going through Rodgers' head, and B, what do you think he's actually going to end up doing?
That's a good question. I think we were presented with the possibility of him retiring a lot sooner than we could think about it. And I think that's probably where he goes. I think he goes to retirement. I don't think he plays anywhere else. Yeah, I don't think anyone else is going to take the bait on him. I don't think he's worth it.
I agree with the not worth it part, right? To a degree. And it's strictly because of the fact that, he didn't look as good as he has in previous years, right? You're coming off an Achilles tendon tear or rupture, which is a devastating injury, right?
Yeah.
I'm not defending Aaron Rodgers in any way, shape, or form. I've watched enough of his stuff that I've formed my own opinion on him, which I won't endorse on here because I think, we'll just leave it at that. But football playing wise, fantastic player. Do I think is the end of his career? Abso-fucking-lutely, right? It is rough coming off of your first season with an Achilles tendon rupture, right? Yeah. No matter who you are, especially when you're playing quarterback position, you're trying to be mobile in the pocket, right?
Yeah.
From my understanding of it, and it was from the Netflix show that is in Aaron Rodgers, that he made his second year coming. Everyone's second year coming off that Achilles rupture is the better year, right? I can see him coming back strictly with that hope. Obviously, it's not going to be with the Jets, right? We've established that now. Right. We know that for sure. But I don't see any. Obviously, there's going to be teams that aren't going to willing to take a bet, risk on him, right? I could see him swallowing his pride, right, sucking up his ego, and being like, okay, obviously, I'm not going to make a metric fuck ton of money this year, right? I'm not going to make $50 million this season or $60 million, whatever it is. He's still guaranteed a good chunk of money from the Jets still. So why not do kind of something like Russell Wilson did last year? And okay, cool. I'm still getting a shit ton of money from the Broncos. I'll go sign league minimum somewhere that I think I have a chance to go do something, and go to the playoffs, right?
That's a valid point.
And make a playoff run.
Where do you see? So okay, let's play out this fantasy for a second because I can see it happening, right? I can. But let me ask you two questions: where and when? And I'll break it down even further. What team does he sign with? That's the where. What team does he sign with? And when does he sign? Before or after the draft? Does he take a chance at going on a team before the draft that needs a quarterback, which we've already established is Tennessee, Cleveland, New York? One of those three teams before the draft, and hoping that they end up changing their draft to something else to help him out on their offensive crusade. Or does he play the draft out, see what teams picked up more of an offensive weapon, and try to fill a gap in that respect afterwards?
I think realistically, I think it's going to be the latter of those two options. I think he's going to go through, not fully commit making a decision until after the draft, just to kind of see, because I think he's going to want to see exactly what plays out with everybody, right? Like, if you go through and you're expecting to go, let's say, bad example, but like the Lions, right?
Okay.
Not a great defense, but you get a defensive player, right, that could kind of change everything around, unless Hutchinson's in, right? But you go through, all right, cool, has some issues on defense, but I've got offensive weapons that I can make some shit happen with, right? Obviously, that's a horrible scenario. It's not going to be the case, but, they end up drafting somebody that can help. Hey, maybe I'll look to go there, right? So I could see him absolutely waiting until, okay, cool, here's the missing piece on defense that we need, right? And you have enough weapons on offense, but your defense was slacking, and maybe I don't necessarily want to go there because your defense hasn't been amazing. You have enough offensive weapons I can work with to kind of take the pressure off me, but your defense, if we're behind, I got to do a lot more to catch up. So I can see him waiting absolutely until after the draft to kind of to piece that together, like one of the options you were giving, just so he can kind of just look at everything, give himself another month or almost 2 months, probably 2.5 months. I think the draft's at the end of April, and also kind of give him time to reflect too, a little bit more, physical therapy on the tendon, and kind of just work through everything, see how he feels, right? In 2 more months, haven't played football for 4 months by that point, you know, see how everything feels. Obviously, it's 42, 41, something like that. So obviously, years of football, joints are a little sore too. On top of all that, that kind of plays a factor. And then as to where, that is a great question. I don't see it being to any of the top 3 teams that are draft position wise.
Okay.
Jacksonville, don't see that happening. They already have Trevor Lawrence. Raiders,
Panthers,
but Panthers already have their veteran Q there, who they've said that they're sticking with now. I think before when did Bryce Young come back in? Like week 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I think realistically that could have been an option. Yes. Because at the time we had Deontay Johnson still as our number 1 wideout, and we had Adam Thielen, and our run game was finally starting to figure it out. So at the time, yes. Now with Bryce Young picking it up the way he did at the end of the season, I think that whole coaching staff, now that we haven't changed anybody either, has a lot more faith in that team that we actually have. Obviously, they need to boost their defense up a ton more, which is I'm hoping is what ends up happening, and we need to get a number 1 wideout target. So I don't see Carolina happening it.
The only other places that I could see him going would be New Orleans, who
that's the other one I'm looking at right now.
Fans are just crying for a different quarterback, or San Francisco. But Brock Purdy, I don't think is going anywhere this year. So
I think Brock Purdy's about to get a massive contract extension.
I agree. I don't think he. I mean, yeah, he's close to the end of his contract, but I don't think he's leaving anytime soon. So I don't know where else he could go besides the Colts as a backup. And that would be the other thing, right? Let's say he signs with a team just as a backup. Like that's a lot of veteran experience that you have just sitting on the bench, and I don't think that's what he wants.
No, I don't think he does either, and it's kind of going back to that whole ego thing too. I mentioned a minute ago, like, yeah, you can teach a lot from the sideline, right? And obviously, there's a ton of film on Aaron Rodgers to, that he can show whoever ends up, if he were to be a backup for somebody. But you want to come out and go through and be like, look, I went through what more than likely would be his last season, coming off that injury and putting up numbers instead of just riding the bench. So right. I think if he goes somewhere, it's going to be somewhere where he's going to start. Yeah, there may be either a rookie or a second-year guy that didn't start. So now that I'm sitting there looking at it, the Vikings.
Yeah, they got Sam Darnold, but they also have
Darnold's a free agent.
Oh shit, that's right.
So they got JJ McCarthy, who was coming off the knee injury that sidelined him the whole season. Why not let him sit there and rehab it out on the sideline for one more season, right? Learn from Aaron Rodgers. And granted, this will also complete him and Brett Favre pretty much doing the exact same thing in their career saga that everyone's been talking about. Yeah. So send him there, right? You got Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
You've got Hawkinson.
Yeah.
You've got the running back. Dude ended up putting up big numbers.
The guy who played with him in Green Bay.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs. I was like, dude, it's a guy that put up big numbers this year after coming off of a season last year. Yeah, Josh Jacobs, right? So, and you have a relatively solid defense for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, why not? Darnold's going to want to pay penny after taking you to the best season you guys have had, minus the losing in the playoff stuff. But record-wise, the best record you've had when he was supposed to be the backup anyway. And you have McCarthy on the sideline, so why not just let him learn from him? Let him rehab that knee up a lot more too. I know they were planning on having him pretty much start from the get go, but you have Aaron Rodgers there. Why not let him learn from him a little bit?
So that's something that I can see happening. That's more realistic. Is him going somewhere and sitting on the bench, and maybe hoping for a rookie to crash and burn, kind of like how Joe Flacco did with Cleveland. Because look at when Joe Flacco got signed. I mean, he got signed late in the season as a backup to the backup to the backup.
Mm.
Came out and just lit the last 4 or 5 weeks that he played on fire, setting the last 5 games he set. He was the highest in every category, and that was with Cleveland. So you get him to sign with somebody like the Saints, and he sits the bench for the first 8 weeks, and then he goes into the latter half of the later half of the season, and he's out there. He might go off and utilize those because the Saints have got a young team that have two or 3 years on their contracts, their rookie contracts, especially the wide receivers. So, and that's a lot of experience that you can share with, a young quarterback. If New Orleans drafts a young quarterback, or like you said, going to the Vikings and sharing that experience with JJ McCarthy, who you can consider him a rookie again because he never played this year.
Yep.
The Raiders. I mean, the Raiders have Gardner Minshew, but
they also have a new head coach.
Yeah, they're not.
Pete Carroll.
They're not. Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not looking for anything. They don't have anything permanent, So
that's the thing. Like, how much is not new to the NFL head coach, but new to the team head coach going on to sit there and go through and be like, okay, we have Aaron Rodgers for a year, and then next year I'm going to be in the same situation of now I got to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Yeah. Compared to the Vikings, who, hey, we already know this dude's going to be the franchise QB pending how well he does, right? So why don't we just keep him here, sign Aaron Rodgers to a league minimum of, veteran minimum for the year, in the expectation of, hey, maybe this dude takes us to a super, at least the playoffs, right? Hopefully get you more out of it. That'd be the end goal, right? It's every team's end goal. And see what happens. And then cool, you win a Super Bowl. Congrats. You can ride off into the sunset with already a good amount of money, not from them, but and just put a ton of incentives in his contract. Hey, you take us to the playoffs, you get X amount, you throw this many yards, right? Just incentivize the shit out of it so that hey, he's got a real reason to keep playing. Granted, not that he wouldn't in that scenario anyway, because he'd come out with a point to prove, but go out and play your final way out instead of kind of just taking over for the last like 8 to 10 weeks of the season just to be like, okay, cool, like I played my last year, I guess.
Yeah, I see that. And I guess it kind of goes back to how we were talking about Travis Kelce with you have a point to prove, not to anybody else, but just to yourself. Like last year sucked. And he was doing pretty good when the last, couple games, like he fought, maybe it was actually just the last week of the season where he just showed this is what I'm capable of. I can do this. I just need to do it more than 1 week in a 17-week season.
Exactly. So I could see that realistically being what ends up happening. And now there's more news that I don't know if you saw about, but Deebo Samuel has requested a trade.
I did not see that.
Yep, him and his manager officially announced that him and Kyle Shanahan, I guess, talked in the last week, and they mutually agreed pretty much to allow a trade to happen. So they're actively able to seek a trade. So now, to me, this is where this gets interesting. Since Carolina's needing a wide receiver and a true number one, right? Why not pick him up? See what we can offer.
So okay. I'm with you, but you lost me because I think Carolina would be better off pulling some young talent out of the draft on the wide receiver side of things. Strictly speaking, because they have now Bryce Young's been in the league for this will be his 4th year now, right?
Third year.
Third year. So he's been in the league. He knows how it's run. He's he's studied under what 4 different quarterbacks in his 3 years, 5 different quarterbacks in his 3 years.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
So, and some big names on there: Andy Dalton, Baker Mayfield, for example. Even though Baker Mayfield was there for like a game, but whatever. Why not let that guy, if you're with him, if you're letting him run his course, let him take control of a young offense and see what he can do with some rookie wide receivers. As opposed
he
to,
had a
like
had a rookie last year.
Well, true. I'm not, and I'm not saying like, oh, the team right now is just too old and they need to be replaced. But I mean, Deebo Samuel is a guy with an attitude, and I also don't foresee him trying to be traded down. If you don't mind me calling your team
I get
a lower
what
standard than San Francisco, but
no, not playoff contention. I mean, granted, San Fran wasn't this season too. No, I get what you're saying, but I kind of feel like he's going to be the same way Deontay Johnson was. Like, if I'm the true number 1 wide receiver, he's happy. Like, if you look at what happened to Deontay Johnson, right? We traded him away to the Ravens. He wasn't the number 1 because Zay Flowers was pretty much solidified that, right?
Yeah.
And then he refused to go in the game, right? They release him. He gets picked up by Houston. Houston doesn't play him, and he seems mad about that because they have Tank Dell.
Yeah.
So you're clearly not the number 1 there. And even if who the hell's the other receiver that got hurt? Not Stephon Diggs, but Nico Collins. Guess what? You're still not the number 2. So you're looking 3rd, maybe 4th string wide receiver on that offense.
Yeah.
And so they cut you there too. And then you go back to the Ravens and you couldn't play the rest of the season anyway. So it wouldn't matter. And then obviously the Ravens lost, so it didn't matter. And now you're a free agent again. So I feel like as long as Deebo can be the true number 1, which in that offense he would be.
He would.
And then we have Jalen Coker as number 2. And I would say Adam Thielen probably 3. And
I forgot about
our
Thielen.
run game has improved drastic amount. But the big thing is, I think on the draft side, if that was the case, we would benefit on is drafting some defensive players to help out because our run defense is fucking atrocious.
Okay, so I forgot y'all had Adam Thielen, which I'm going to use him to back up my point even more about not getting Deebo, because if you have 2 young wide receivers, and Adam Thielen is past his prime, but still, I mean, he almost won the Triple Crown like 4 years ago, so he's not a bad wide receiver by any stretch of imagination. Why not let him lead that receiving corps with 2, a sophomore and a rookie? If you drafted a wide receiver first round this year,
I think because of the fact that he's at this point in his career, and this is strictly my opinion, and this is coming from a Panther fan. At this point in his career, he is not that true number 1 wideout that he once was.
No, I'm not saying make him the number 1. I'm just saying help him guide the younger guys. Yeah, he still could be the number 3. If you have 2 rookies on the outside, I mean, it works. Like we saw 2 rookies take over in Houston. You have Tank Dell and Nico Collins.
Agreed. But I just feel like they want that. And right now, Jalen Coker is not the elite speedster at the moment. He's good at breaking some routes. Obviously, rookie season, right? So you can't really judge too much, and didn't really break out until kind of the end of the season, kind of when everything was starting to click. But I feel like not the Carolinas in that like win now type mentality. Obviously, that's not the case. We don't have any of the draft capital or anything, coming off the Bears trade. But to at least get a receiver to help Bryce Young throw the ball downfield more and stretch out the defense, I think would be the big thing. And granted, I don't see them doing, a receiver, especially not at number 8. Especially when we saw that, I don't think that first receiver was until 12 or 13, maybe 14 or 15, I think, from what we looked at a minute ago. And I feel like there's other issues. And if you can get Deebo at what a lot of people would consider like a discount, why not? And then try to shore up the defense a little bit more. I definitely see where you're coming from, though, with Adam Thielen and letting him, mentor everybody else.
So the only other reason I would like advise against it is because y'all don't have many draft picks, and they're gonna want to pick from him at least, especially going into this draft. They've got you guys are giving up your second round pick to Chicago.
Yep.
Even though you're getting a later second round pick from LA.
Mm-hmm.
Where else are you? You don't have a third round. Oh yeah, you do. I was gonna say you don't have a mid third round, but I mean, so you're basically trading spots in the second round from an early pick to a later pick, and they're gonna want some draft stock from him because San Francisco is kind of looking for blood in the division, and they're not projected to pick any offensive guys. So they trade away one of their top offensive receivers. They're going to want another pick. Let's say they take a second round pick from you. Now you guys are only limited to 2 picks in the draft.
True, but if you look at San Fran too, that wouldn't be the first time we've done that. We did that a few years back. We did it a few years ago. You go through and look. If that's the case, right? Debo wasn't as much of a contributing factor in that offense as he was now. What would be the season before? So 2 seasons ago, right? When everything ran through McCaffrey and Debo. Now it's obviously before Ayuk got hurt. It was Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. Hell, even it was Isaiah Guerrero or whoever ended up being McCaffrey's backup after McCaffrey got hurt. And it kind of all ended up kind of going through them. That offense didn't look the same this year. And it was probably just because they were all riddled with injuries. I think Ayuk's the guy that they're kind of looking at now as to being the main guy, and Debo's kind of just there for window dressing pretty much. Hey, run around in the backfield a little bit. Maybe they'll think we'll pitch it to you. You take upfield, leaves Ayuk open or leaves McCaffrey open. So he's not really that top main guy anymore that he was 2 years ago. So I think that kind of helps them get a little bit. Yeah, they're not going to give. I don't think any team's going to give up a first round for him. No way.
No, I don't think he's worth first round.
Yeah,
last year I would say second round maybe, but this year probably not.
Yeah, we give up that third round pick.
But I don't know, man. But for what? So now you're gonna have 2 veterans and a rookie wide receiver, and I say 2 veterans, but you're not getting your trade stock from Adam Thielen. You're not
realistically he's going to be done in the next 2 years anyway.
Yeah, but I mean you expect to squeeze the last couple years of football out of him.
Which he said he wants to keep playing for Carolina, at least from the sounds of it, for at least this year and potentially the next season. So you have that. You can keep Debo 2-3 year contract, right? And you keep the 2 of them for 2 years. Help, Thielen can obviously, granted he's older, but he's still a decent route runner, not amazing, not what he was in his prime. You have Debo who can stretch out the field, right? He's a fast receiver. And like I said, you shore up some defense. Bryce Young's starting to kind of figure everything out a little bit now, right? Give him somebody to actually throw to downfield because, shit, I think I could count on one hand how many times Carolina threw the ball more than 25 yards in the season. This last season, and it might have been closer to two or three fingers worth. So, and that's not even run after catch stuff. That's actually just airing the ball out 25 yards in the air, not, which we just didn't have the receiver. We didn't have the receiving core to do it. And yeah, no, I definitely get what you're saying. Try to get the rookie and try to see if you can get stuff out of the draft. And I think this will be more of a conversation for our next episode, just because of the fact we'll dig into the draft a little bit more and kind of figure out exactly who's out there, because I don't really know as far as like receivers and stuff and who's out there.
Yeah,
but I mean, if there's a speedster, sure, right? Get him on a rookie contract, but then you still got to like kind of train him up and get him ready to go. But I think this will be a good convo to pick up next episode.
Yeah, I agree.
But on that note, though, we've hit the end of the thing on everything on the script. I think we've talked about a bunch of random stuff as well. We're coming up a little bit past that hour mark, right? So we'll go ahead and talk about what me and you were talking about pre-recording of the show, about what to look forward to for next season from us. So if you, I mean, you can go ahead and
we were kind of talking about what the off season will look like for us, with the slowing of news and stuff that's coming out from football. I think it's going to be. We decided to do a show every other week. But in those off weeks, we'll be working towards creating more sites for the show. An Instagram, Twitter, something for us to continually pump out more daily updates instead of just relying on a weekly episode to just talk about whatever. And I think that'll be fun too to have a more of an engagement from the viewers to ask us to do something, or ask us a question, or get our insight on something. And I think too, and I think we mentioned it multiple times through the season. I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to set up some kind of league for the viewers to hop in and play with us.
Absolutely too. I think if we go like the Instagram route too, which we'll definitely end up doing, it'll help us get that outreach too, to actually get people engaged to it. If in the off chance, you don't, especially no one's thinking about football. I mean, a handful of us are. Between now and pretty much fucking August, no one's really thinking about it much. So to kind
Not
of keep
unless
us
you're
out
a
there,
UFL fan, which we probably won't talk about that much. So
no, yeah, but keep people engaged, and hey, like we're still there. Like,
yeah,
don't forget about us, type stuff. Hey, we got stuff in the background going on. So, but yeah, I think with this being what we'll consider like our season finale, quote unquote, until obviously like Zach said, we'll pump out stuff every other week. Unless there's just some massive news that we feel we need to talk about, we'll talk. We'll pump out an episode that week if it's outside that 2-week window, and then
I think we can also look at doing like a watch party or something for the draft.
Yeah, at least round one, hopefully.
That would be nice. Yeah.
And kind of post that live as we go through, and go from there. Obviously, drafts in almost 2 months. The new league year starts in like a month and a half. I think it's like March 20 something. I think.
Yeah, that's when
maybe
trades.
Not even. Yeah, maybe not even that late.
Acquisitions will start happening.
Yeah, so there'll be some news for us then to talk about too, and such like that. So that'll be the direction we're going. As far as the podcast itself, obviously, hopefully next season we'll get you guys more, videos and stuff in the YouTube stuff, or at least pictures or stat lines or something. So you're just not listening to us if you're watching to it on YouTube, which I think is the majority of our viewers. But
yeah,
and then work on some more special guests. Obviously, we'll have Kev back, definitely, especially coming off their Super Bowl win. Hell, we honestly might have him back on the next episode. We'll see. I was hoping to get him here, and I didn't realize I didn't text him until like right before we recorded, and I was like, I'm not going to spring it on. I'm not going to spring it on him now. So.
I'm sure he would be all for it, but
yeah, 100%. But we'll give him a week or two to let his jersey get in the mail and everything else. So, but yeah, with that, I think we're a little bit past probably like the hour 15 mark at this point. But as usual, I mean, I got nothing else, Zach, unless you do.
No, I'm good. Thank you all for hanging out. Appreciate it. We always end it with saying, like, comment, subscribe. But ending the 2024 season, it's been fun. We went almost the full year. We started week 4, so looking forward to starting from the beginning of 2025 at the draft and ending it at the Super Bowl next year to do one full football season with y'all. I'm excited about that. Trying to get some more content for you, whether it's Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, as well as like maybe a betting group on DraftKings for y'all to see my shitty bets of the week, or a league for y'all to play fantasy football with us in, for either for money or just for bragging rights. So lots of cool things we're going to be working towards in the off season, just to make it more enjoyable for you loyal viewers.
Yeah. As always, it's been fun. Again, like Zach said, like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, it's been a good, almost full season of us doing this. Obviously, it'll slow down a little bit more, but Zach, as always, it's always fun to co-host this with you for
yes, sir.
Hour and a half, almost, of us just talking football and shit. So for the final seed time for the 2024 season / 2025 season, This is Pigskin Prognosis signing off. And again, reminding you that your 2024 Super Bowl champions were the Philadelphia Eagles. So congratulations to them. And again, this is us signing off for the final time this season. Hopefully, have a good off season and a good summer. And we'll talk to you guys throughout the next couple of months. Have a
Well
good one.
said, Sully. See you guys.
Okay, bye.